In this video, we are going to talk about date hierarchy and we are going to create our own customized date hierarchies. But first of all, let me show you the data that I'm going to use and then let us start from there. So you can see that here in this sheet, I have a calendar table and this calendar is starting from 1st of January 2018 and it is going all the way to 31st of December 2020. So you can say that I have a complete 3-year calendar. Now, if I deploy a pivot table on this data on the new sheet and I drag down this date field from here to rows or columns, you will see that system will automatically create a date hierarchy. So it will split my dates into years, and then years can be split further into quarters, which can be split further into the months as well. So this date hierarchy, when we drag down the date field from any data to pivot table, is generated automatically, and it is definitely an amazing feature of Excel, and it helps us analyze data into years, quarters and months very quickly and very easily. However, there is a limitation, and this limitation is this hierarchy automatically is only created for the calendar year, which means that the years start from the 1st of January and they end at 31st of December. So which means that in 2018, the data that must be appearing belongs to the dates between 1st of January 2018 to the 31st of December 2018. And when I say quarter one, it will definitely mean that, we are talking about January, February and March. Now, in quite often cases, especially for the accounting and finance people, we have a different financial year, or you can say fiscal year, from that is different from the calendar year. So in finance, usually the accounting year or financial year starts from the 1st of June and it ends at 30th of July, or for some companies it starts from the 1st of April and it ends at 31st of March. So if that is the case, how we can generate the hierarchies according to our financial year, we are going to discuss that. But before we do that, we will have to arrange the data in the calendar table so that we can create our own date hierarchy according to our own financial year. So in this data, first of all, I'm going to extract year, month and finally quarter of the year from this date. And of course, this year extraction, month and quarter will be based on the calendar year, and then we will adjust the data according to our own needs. So to extract the year, I will use the simple year function. I will refer to the date, close the bracket and press enter. And you can see that, the year has been extracted very easily. Similarly, to extract the month, I will simply use the month function, close the bracket, refer the cell, close the bracket and press enter. And finally we can replicate that to the whole column. You can see it is working completely fine. Now finally, to extract the quarter, unfortunately there is no direct function in Excel which can extract the quarter from the date, but we can extract the quarter from the month number very easily. To demonstrate that, I will quickly create this column here, which will contain the values from 1 to 12. So basically you can assume that this cell is the month number, and I have demonstrated all of them from month 1 to month 12. So all we have to do is use this value and divide that with 3 because there are 3 months in a quarter, and press enter. And first of all, let us replicate that to the whole column, and you will notice that there are strange values, but the beautiful thing, the beautiful trend that you will notice is for all the first 3 values, the answer is less than or equal to 1. For all the next 3 values, the answer is greater than 1, but it is less than or equal to 2. Similarly, the answer is less than or equal to 3, and the answer is less than or equal to 4. So this is basically very simple mathematics that you can understand. And now the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to round up this value that we have just calculated to the nearest whole number. So I will press 0 to say to the nearest whole number, press enter, and finally let us replicate that to the whole column. And you can see, based on the calendar year, we have very easily extracted the quarter number for the first 3 months, for the second 3, for the third, this set as well, and this set as well. Now using this technique, we are going to extract the quarter number from all the dates that we have in our calendar table. So I will say equals round up, and what we have to round up, we have to round up the month number divided by 3. and we want to round that up to the nearest whole number. So I will press 0 and close the bracket, press enter, and let us replicate that to the whole column. And now if I scroll down, you will notice that as we have entered the month of March, the quarter number has changed from 1 to 2. So we have successfully extracted the year, month and quarter from our date column. Now the next step should be to extract the year, date and column for our data according to our financial year. And the financial year that I am going to consider here in my example is going to be the one that ends at 30th June, which means that my financial year will start from the 1st of July and it will end at the 30th of June of the next year. So let us start that. So let us begin by extracting the financial year first. So I will write it here, and I will say the logic that I'm going to use is if the month is less than or equal to 6, the financial year will be same as calendar year. For the first 6 months in 2018, if my year end is ending at 30th of June, my financial year will be same as calendar year. But if we go to the month number 7 or onwards, the new financial year will start, which means that the calendar year should be taken, but there should be one that should be added, so it will become 2019. Let us write that, and that will make more sense then. So I will say if the month is less than or equal to 6, please bring me the calendar year in the financial year. But if that is not the condition, please use another if condition, and that is if the month number is greater than 6, then bring this year, but please add 1 to that so that it can go to my next year. So, and if both of these conditions are not met, we of course have to close this formula this way, then give me 0 and then close the bracket, and of course we have to use the second bracket as well because we have two if functions that have been operated here in this formula. I will press enter, and now I will double click to replicate that to the whole column. And now if I scroll down, you will notice that for all the initial months of 2018, you are saying that the financial year is same as calendar year. But as I scroll further down, as we have entered the month number 7, from there the next year will start, as in next financial year will start, and system has given me correctly that please note that from here 2019 is starting. Now let us scroll further down and let us see that what happens when my calendar year gets changed. So let us scroll further down and and now here 2019 calendar year has started. Now you can see that here again in financial year we have the similar answer, and that is what we had expected, because the initial 6 months of 2019, I mean the calendar year, this financial year will also remain 2019. So my formula has already taken care of that, and you can see that as I'm scrolling down till 6th month in 2019, the financial year is also shown as 2019, but as the 7th month has started in 2019, my 2020 financial year has started. So my formula has taken care of this calculation already. Let us number our quarters and our months according to our financial year, and first I'm working on quarters and I will call it financial quarter. And of course you can do this conversion multiple ways. I'm going to use a classic if statement. So I will say if this cell that contains quarter number D2 equals 1, please make it 3. And the reason is very simple. The first quarter of the year, that is going to be Jan, Feb and March, that is going to be the 3rd quarter according to my financial year, which ends in 30th June. So this is the first statement, that if D2 equals 1, make it 3. And now of course we have to use the if statement 4 times for my data. So I will say if again, and I will say if D2 this time equals 2, please make it 4, and again an if statement, and I'll say if D2 equals 3, please make it 1, and finally if D2 equals 4, that should be 2 for me. And finally to close the if statement, I will apply a 0 as well, that if none of the condition is met, what should be the answer. And finally I will close the 4 brackets that I have opened, and I will press enter, and let us replicate this step for the whole column. And now you can see that wherever my quarter is 1, in this column I'm seeing the 3, for 2 I'm seeing 4, for 3 I have 1, and finally for 4 I have 2. So I have very easily converted the data according to my financial year. And finally I have to convert the month number as well according to my need. So I will call that financial month. Of course you can call that anything that you like, so I will call it this way. And finally let us do, of course we can do that an if statement again, or you can make a quick chart here for conversion and you can then finally apply the VLOOKUP. But I'm using if statement, so I will say if the month number equals 1, please make it 6. Now of course, you know, I will have to do that so many times. Here I will have to do that 12 times. So rather than writing this formula again and again, I'm going to copy this part here, and for that what I have to do is I'll press F2 so that, you know, my cell can go into edit mode, and I will copy this part and I will now paste it 12 times. And now I can go back and change the values as I like. So I will say 1 should be 6, and you know, 1 should not be 6, actually 1 should be 7. So 1 should be 7, sorry, my mistake. Similarly 2 should be, you know, 8, and 3 should be 9, 4 should be 10, 5 should be 11, 6 should be 12, and 7 should be 1, and of course, you know, 8 should be 2, and then 9 should be 3, and again of course I will have to use 3 more conditions. So I'll Control V again 3 times, so go back again and I will say, I'm sorry, so going to edit mode again, and I will say go back and say that 10 should be, you know, 4, so that should be 10, it should become 4, and finally 11 should become 5, and 12 should become 6, and finally if none of the condition is met, please give me 0. And let us close the 6 if conditions one more time and press enter, and okay. So now you can see the month number 1 has been termed as month number 7 for me, which is actually right. January would be 7th month for me. Let us replicate that to whole column and let us scroll down to see if everything is working fine. 2 is 8, 3 is 9, 4 is 10, 5 is 11, 6 is 12, 7 is 1, 8 is 2, 9 is 3, 10 is 4, and 11 is 5, and 12 is 6. So that should be completely all right. Well, an easier way could be that, you know, you had made a chart here like this and then mentioned the new number and then use the VLOOKUP. That could have been easier, but anyways, using if statements look more classic to me. So now that we have our financial years defined in this sheet and also the quarters and months defined accordingly, let us go to insert a new pivot table. Let us do that on a new sheet, and in this new pivot table, first of all, let us drag down our financial year from here to rows. And now you can see we have a little different view. We have 2018, 19, 20 and 21 as well, even though we only had data for 18, 19 and 20. So you will see why that is happening. Let me also drag down this financial quarter from here to here. And now you can notice something very interesting, and that is for 2018, you are only seeing quarter 3 and quarter 4. And let me explain you why is that so. Remember that my data started from 2018, I mean from the 1st of January 2018. Now this 2018 that is appearing here is basically financial year 2018, which will end at 30th of June 2018. Which means that only quarter 3 and quarter 4 of this year are present in the data. The first 2 quarters are simply not there. For these 2 years, this is all clear, but for 2021, you know that year 2021, I mean the financial year 2021 will end at 30th of June 2021, which means that this financial year must have started from the 1st of June 2020, which means that from my data only first 2 quarters of this financial year were available. Now if you drag down the month field as well, you can see this further that for this 2018 we have only 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, these months were available. And finally, just to double check, you can also bring the month here from this column to this the rows, and you can see that for the 7th month we have the first calendar month that is basically appearing here. So you can see that first 6 months of the calendar year 2018 are actually falling here in this pivot table as the last 6 months for financial year 2018. Now we have seen that our pivot table is working completely fine. Now we want to go one step forward and we want to check the data as well, that if the data that is appearing in this table is also correct. So for that I will just simply go to the calendar table and I will simply add another amount column here, and in that amount column I'm going to write 1 for the complete column. And now you know that what you will expect from this pivot table. So if we are talking about calendar year, for each year 2018, 19 and 20 we should be expecting the answer of 365, but since we are in the financial year we should be expecting a different answer, because for 2018 and 21 we don't even have the complete financial year. So the amount is not appearing here at the moment. For that I will go to the pivot table and I will click on refresh. But unfortunately amount is still not appearing, and that is because in the calendar table we created the pivot table without inserting our data here. So what I should have done is that I should have inserted a table first, and I should have inserted a pivot table based on this table. And what that how that helps is that as the data extends in columns or rows of the table can be refreshed just the way we were just trying to. But anyways, I can now quickly create a new pivot table just to avoid the limitation that I'm facing. So now let me go to this financial year here, FY, and now let me bring the amount here. And now you can see that in the 2018 we basically are not seeing the full data, and this is because our financial year in this case is only considering the first 6 months that are in 2018. And similarly, if we talk about 2021, even though in our data there was no 2021 as in calendar year, for calendar year we only have data for 2018, 19 and 20, but since the last 6 months of 2020 are falling in the 2021, these dates are appearing here. So I really hope that this whole concept is making sense to you. So by creating this kind of columns for financial year, quarter and month, you can easily split your data. You can use that hierarchy and you can analyze your data into years, months and quarters with financial years that you have. Now one thing that we could have done, if we were working on Power Pivot, we could have done one thing, and that was to create a hierarchy so that we won't have to drag down the 3 dates all of the times. How we can do that, let me show you now. Well, if you don't know Power Pivot, you can definitely skip this part of the video. Now let us go back to our calendar table, and the first thing we want is that we want to add this table to the data model. So I will click on Power Pivot here and I will click on add to data model, and this data will go to the data model. Now here in this diagram view, what I will do is I will click on this financial year option. Right click and I will click on create hierarchy, and I'm going to name this hierarchy FY financial year hierarchy. And now after that I will click on this financial quarter and I will say add to hierarchy, which hierarchy, FY hierarchy. And then after that what I will do is that I will click on financial month and I will say add to hierarchy. And finally I will click on date and I will say add to hierarchy. And now we have manually created this hierarchy, and you can see that the benefit is when I go back to my pivot table, the Power Pivot, when I deploy pivot table from here, and let me show you that how this is going to work. So all I have to do, of course there are all the fields that are appearing, but you can see that we have the complete hierarchy that is available now. So if I drag down the date hierarchy here, you can see that you now have your year, you can further split into the quarter, and you can split the quarter into the months, and you can split months into the dates as well. So that is it. I hope that you have liked this video.